Hey guys, welcome back to Take 2 Movie Recaps. Today I'm going to explain an action movie called Equalizer, released in 2014. So, sit back, relax and enjoy this one. Robert McCall maintains a peaceful regular life while working as a storekeeper at a hardware store in Boston. He is helping his colleague Ralphie pass the test for a new job as a security guard in addition to his other obligations. Robert's social life is quite passive except from this. He spends a lot of time reading books in a local restaurant, where he frequently observes a young prostitute named Alina fretting over her employment. Robert gradually starts to understand her plight, especially after seeing her being coerced by her pimp Slavic to perform for one of his clients. One night, after a few polite exchanges, Alina reluctantly approaches his table as he offers her some food. He warmly welcomes her and offers to sit down next to him. Both of them get to know one another as they converse, and Robert tells her about his habit of reading books, which he inherited from his ex-wife. They become friends as a result of their meeting, which acts as an icebreaker. After they leave the restaurant, Alina bids him farewell. Alina does not appear for the following several days. Robert is told by the restaurant owner that the woman has been severely assaulted by Slavi and has been admitted to the intensive care unit. When he visits Alina in the hospital, he notices Mandy standing at her side. He asks Mandy about Alina after noticing that she is truly worried about her, and she unwillingly answers that she is a slave, explaining that he routinely spanks the females to keep them in line. Knowing that Slavi also threatened to kill Alina, Robert visits Slavi's club at night and offers money for her freedom, but Slavi refuses to take it and even denies knowing Alina at all. Robert gets angry, he starts a fight, rapidly eliminates all of his companions, and then sneakily returns to his room leaving no evidence of his involvement. He goes back to work next morning, and Ralphie told him that he was finally making headway with his training. When Robert hears about the deaths later, he finds that the police are blaming them on a violent brawl between rival gangs and that no one is sure who the real killer is. Mr. Pushkin, the club owner and a prominent member of the Russian mafia, sends Teddy, his second in command, to investigate the killings after learning of the incident. After examining the area, Teddy orders his men to find the security footage. The next day, when Ralphie doesn't show up for work, Robert arrives at his family's restaurant to find that the neighborhood has been largely damaged by a fire. As Ralph's mother is cleaning up the mess by herself, he lends a hand. While Frank begs Teddy to be lenient, Teddy encounters Irish criminal John, Pushkin's partner, and beats him to death for failing to provide security for his men. Frank is forced to kill John's goons as well, but he protests this uncalled-for conflict until Teddy admits that Pushkin's message was to demonstrate his dominance to everyone else. Teddy asks Mandy whether she saw anything odd about enslavement, his behavior before his murder, or if he had any enemies as part of his ongoing investigations, but she denies being aware of any of his business dealings in the open. While telling him that they had not yet found out anything, Teddy informs him that he is intrigued since the person who eliminated Slavi and his guys was skilled at what they did and left no evidence, leading him to believe that they were a professional. When Pushkin learns of this, he gives the order to identify the murderer at any costs and makes an example of him so that no one would ever question him again. In the meantime, Ralph's mother's restaurant is visited by dishonest cops who demand money from Ralph and, when she refuses, admit that they were the ones who started the fire. When they exit the restaurant with the necessary amount, Robert stops them and confronts them about their behavior while displaying a video as proof. Robert beats them up and makes them repay the money they stole from various people as they begin to make fun of him for being ignorant about the effects of intervention. Otherwise, he would reveal the video to the media. Ralphie was able to return to work the next day after the pair eventually returned the money. Mandy is compelled to give information about Robert by Teddy, who then chokes her. Ralphie eventually takes on the role of security guard, and he expresses his gratitude to Robert for helping him along the way. Teddy learns about Robert's role in the assassination of Slavic and his men after finding Robert's images in the club's security tape. At Robert's place of work, there has been a break-in. Jenny, his co-worker, is robbed of her money and a ring, but Robert takes note of the features of the robber's appearance in his car. The following evening, he uses force once more to seize Jenny's ring and give it back to her in confidence. Teddy shows up at Robert's flat while posing as a police officer looking into whether Slavi's murder. Robert answers his questions by claiming that he went to the club to see a friend but was unable to locate her. He also answers questions concerning Mandy and his visit on the night of the murder. Teddy expresses his mistrust of him as Robert observes him leaving with Frank Masters. Robert secures his flat as Teddy begins doing a background check on him, setting up the security cameras and creating a false trail. Robert is confronted at the restaurant by Teddy's helper. But once more, Robert kills him in a matter of seconds as they observe from the opposite side of the street. After turning off the power, he is hidden from view. Before leaving the restaurant, Robert stops to shoot shots of Teddy and his guys right in front of them. As they pursue him, Robert attempts to kill Frank Masters but spares his life when he sees his police badge. While Robert sees them through the surveillance cameras installed throughout the home, Teddy and his guys break into Robert's flat and begin examining the space. Teddy hears about the ruse as they are contemplating the evidence they have discovered and tells his squad to get him as soon as possible. To inquire about Teddy, Robert visits Susan, a friend and former co-worker, at the intelligence agency. After lunch, I spoke with him. Susan's husband explains to him how Susan was devastated when he pretended to die in a car explosion, but they are relieved to see him alive again. Susan compiles the data and informs Robert that the East Coast served as the base for Pushkin's illegal activities. She informs him that Pushkin is involved in numerous illicit operations, including drug trafficking and human trafficking, but that no one can stop him because he has connections in every field. His real name is Nikolachenko, and he used to be a trained agent of the Russian Secret Service. Now, he serves as Pushkin's right hand and upholds the law against the Russian mafia. Susan warns Robert to be cautious since she knows Teddy won't stop until he kills him after describing his several goons, including Frank Masters. Susan queries Robert the following morning as to why he is looking for Alina's abusers and why he is so concerned about her. Robert replies that he never had a close relationship with Alina and that he is simply looking for these criminals because he is capable of doing so and feels it is his duty. Susan realizes after hearing this that he always wanted to operate in this manner, which is why he quit the force to handle everything his own way. Despite the fact that she believes Robert consistently adopts the incorrect behaviors. After paying Susan a visit, Robert goes into Frank's home and holds him under duress in order to learn more about Pushkin and his nefarious deeds. Frank first refuses to help, but after Robert attempts to suffocate him in his own automobile, Frank cooperates. Frank introduces himself as the new policeman on Pushkin's payroll and follows him to one of Pushkin's hidden money laundering warehouses on his orders. Robert tells Andrei, who is in control, that they need to move all the money because their most recent location has been exposed, but Andrei doesn't trust him. When he appears perplexed, Robert fools him and steals his rifle in an instant, taking him prisoner and compelling him to follow his instructions. Later, he sends the employees home, gives them each some money, and compels Frank Masters to call the police. Frank admits that before getting engaged in this mess, he was a fine cop after Robert chastises him for disrespecting his department. Robert therefore implores him to act morally. Using the information Frank gave him, he gets a flash drive out of his hidden locker that contains all the details of Pushkin's criminal activities. While this is going on, the police detain Frank and the rest of the workers and seize millions of dollars from the warehouse. Teddy is confronted by Robert when he first meets him about his terrible history, which includes being adopted by a loving couple whom he later killed. After giving him his phone number, Robert asks him to call him if he decides to support him before leaving the restaurant. He finds the data on the flash drive, which he emails to the FBI. Additionally, he discovers information about Pushkin's oil tankers, which he later sets ablaze in a show of force as a threat to defeat him. Following instructions from Pushkin to extort Robert, Teddy storms the store and takes the staff hostage, including Ralphie and Jenny. Following his phone call, Robert eventually makes it to the store, where he first saves Ralphie before using his assistants to kill each person one by one, suffering injuries in the process. Ralphie comes to Robert's rescue, and he asks him to keep the guys busy while he hunts them down. Teddy learns about Ralphie after he activates the fire alarm, but he shoots the man. Soon after Robert arrives and exits the establishment, Teddy is killed with a nail gun. Robert confronts Pushkin about his misdeeds when he shows up to his home in Moscow 3 days later, revealing his intention to assassinate him when he arrived. Pushkin is tricked by Robert into electrocuting himself as he exits the estate. Alina approaches Robert a few days after he arrives back in Boston from his native country. She has now recovered from her wounds and begun a new life with the money he left her in an anonymous will. She continues to thank him for inspiring her to pursue her goals despite being unaware of the situation. Despite defeating Pushkin's group, Robert resolves to keep using his combat abilities, placing online advertisements as a leveler, and responding to people's online requests for assistance. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.